welcome to Chris Parkin Shooting Sports. Well, I've been a lucky boy this time. I've got one of the latest FX Leopards pretty early on in the whole sort of life cycle of this rifle, and I have to say I've been quite impressed with it for a number of reasons. So, looking at this rifle overall, it's obviously a bullpup design completely. The magazine fits in the back here. Now this one is a 30 cal version. It's available in 177, 22, 25 and 30 cal, and obviously you can have various barrel lengths and non-FAC and FAC specification. For the non-UK shooters out there, basically an FAC specification air rifle is one that goes above 12 foot-pounds of muzzle energy. And of course to many markets that will seem very low, but in the UK that's how it is. This one being FAC is significantly more powerful. So the rifle is available in two major formats. The tube version obviously has the air cylinder, a bit like a DRS, part of the barrel system itself, which has two benefits. It's very compact and it also massively stiffens up the barrel and barrel liner system. This one is the bottle version, which has got an underslung 580cc carbon fibre body bottle, gives you a little bit more air capacity, and especially on the FAC version you're going to be using it. Now at the back end here we've got a power plenum which is hidden now. You can see them there underneath the butt here in this sort of recoil pad area, which keeps everything compact, gives it a slightly more rearward weight bias as well. And of course this rifle it's quite heavy, it's all aluminium, all hard anodized, very nicely made, but it is one of the heavier ones. It weighs in overall 3,980 grams, which is £8.14 ounces, so you do get used to the heft a little bit of it. Now it's screw cut underneath the cap at the front here for a sound moderator. I didn't happen to have a 30 cal sound moderator with me, so it will sound quite loud compared to many of the other air rifles I've reviewed in FAC and non-FAC format, but that's part of the factor of the power output, which you're going to hear about in a minute. There's a few discrepancies on the actual instruction manual versus the website, whether this is a Picatinny rail of 20 or 30 MOA inclination. To be fair, it doesn't really matter that much because either one's going to get you out to longer ranges, and at the end of the day you're going to want a scope on it that you can afford to be doing quite a lot of dialing with. That length of Picatinny rail does give you quite a lot of space to put your optic on, get the correct tire relief, and although it looks close, there is still actually a gap underneath that one at the front there, just for people who are a little bit worried about that. The safety catch is on the side here, fire and safe as you would expect. Now this trigger is a two-stage unit, fully adjustable. The one on this rifle that we're using here is in fact very light. It was 115 grams, which is 4 ounces. I think I personally want it a little bit heavier than that, but that alone will impress a lot of shooters who do like a super light trigger. The grip has got nice tactile surface, it's rubberized, you've got a good palm swell at the back here, fills your hand quite well, and you've got the usual sort of AR-15 layout, reasonable sort of intermediate length of pull from the throat to the actual trigger blade itself, but you'll get used to that. It's a bit shorter than many sporting rifles, but in terms of the modern AR-15 format, absolute par for course. Now the filling on the side, you've got a Foster adapter there, you get a Foster connector with the rifle to use with it, and that is the gauge there which tells you fill pressure, remaining air or fill up to pressure, and that comes up to a 230 bar fill for this particular rifle. Again, FX do tell you in the instruction manual that these are more for guidance than exact values, and probably the bigger gauge on your actual air bottle itself is a tiny bit more accurate. On the other side we've got the regulator pressure, and I've recorded these along with the macro and micro adjusters on the actual settings I was getting when I was shooting the rifle, because one thing I will say about this rifle is it was very quickly very accurate and it didn't need much tuning at all. played with a couple of different weights of slugs in the superior heavy liner, and it worked very, very nicely. Now, speaking of slugs, you've got usual FX magazine system. You flip this all the way around there, take the cover off, rotate that all the way back there, put the first of your 13 pellets in there, and then backfill the rest of them, and it will automatically spring feed them. It will hold open on the last round, and these are now far more reliable than used to be a couple of years ago. You'll also note there's a heavy recess in here, so it gives you massive space for the projectiles within, and I was using some 63 grain Zan slugs in 30 cal, which is the heaviest ones I had with me. They fitted fine. I was using those 63 grain slugs. They didn't work brilliantly well, and I was shooting them trying different setups, and I didn't use them in the end because the FX hybrid slugs worked a lot better, and these are 44.5 grains and seem to suit the liner in this rifle perfectly. You will see on target the results of the tune with these slugs in this rifle at 50 meters. It was astoundingly good and maintained consistency at that level, and I would have to say this really seems to be an evolution of everything FX have done and learned and improved upon over the last several years. Now, it's got the AMP2 regulator in it. You can change the overall adjustable pressure on the regulator. I left it where it was set at the factory, but I did play about with the macro and micro tuning adjusters slightly. They didn't change things massively. I probably swapped from 15 up to 16 on the power, and I'm here reading just about 3.5 on the micro adjuster, and that was where it did shoot the best groups for me. Now, on the back of the recoil pad here, you've got quite a dish recoil pad. You've got a little adjustable screw there, which allows you to slacken and move that if you want to. If I'm honest, once I'd got it set where I wanted it, I'd take that out and put a grub screw in, because it does tend to dig into your shoulder when you're shooting it wrapped around it. I think FX have realised that, because they have chamfered it somewhat, but it still digs in a little bit, and I would probably just put a grub screw in. The back end here, you can obviously grip it into your shoulder because you've got that large area, and of course with the web of your hand you can fully support that like that, or you can use a small bag under the toe of the butt pad or a larger bag underneath here like that, and you will get massive stability from it. It's probably not the most dynamic hunting rifle because it is quite heavy at almost 4 kilos, plus your accessories you can add on top of that, but it does perform really nicely, and I was getting 39 shots out of that 230 bar fill before I was swapping just as a precaution. If you look on the FX website, it will actually advertise that with a 50 grain slug at about 950 feet per second in the 30 cal, you should be looking at 21 shots from a fill, and I think that seems realistic in terms of what they may have been using as the regulator pressure and power settings in terms of relative to what I was using with these slugs, which are as pretty much as heavy as you're likely to want or need to shoot on any quarry in the UK. Again, 44.5 grain hybrids from FX were the ones that performed the best. I would like to have tried some pellets and more slugs particularly, but you know, I've got what I have got, and those hybrid slugs do seem to work extremely well in most rifles because they don't push the weight too far, and I think in this superior heavy liner, FX have maybe designed a liner around their slugs, and that's why they work particularly well. You might want to chase greater ballistic coefficients and greater energy, of course, by going heavier still on the slugs, but do bear in mind that rotation speed is critical to actual projectile stability. The heaviest slugs I have at 63 grains on power setting 16, and we've got a regulator pressure here, 872 feet per second, which is 106 foot-pounds. Critically, and very interestingly, the extreme spread on a 10-shot group, believe this or not, was 2 feet per second, which is pretty stunning, but they didn't shoot well on target because they're just not stable, I don't think, in this barrel. Swap now to those 45.5 grain FX slugs. Using the same tune, I was getting 978 feet per second, which is about 95 foot-pounds, and the extreme spread over the 10-shot group was it was about 5 or 6 feet per second, which I think is exceedingly good in the real world. And of course, the group was diminished slightly by the fact it was still breezy. Now, if you go for the tube version of the rifle, you get a long arc of Swiss rail to put it on tripods, bipods, things like that. If you got this version with the bottle, you've got a Picatinny rail back here, which can use an underslung bipod like that with feet leaning forward. I also shot it off a tripod, works exceedingly well, clips into the Picatinny mount on that, and you've got no problem with solidity and retain zero. These barrels are a lot stiffer, and if you bump and bash the gun around a bit, which most people do when they're hunting, if they're honest and real and they're not just safe queens, that doesn't lose zero. And I was much more impressed by generally all the FX barrels since the DRS system came out, because it does just stiffen things up massively. Overall length is 35.5 inches, which is 900 millimeters. And one of the interesting dimensions of this, because a lot of air rifles are pretty small, this one has actually got a 15.25 inch length of pull, which is 385 millimeters, and that is longer than most guns of any description are, and you do feel very comfortable using it. And of course, although it's not recoil is in any kind of, you know, throwing you around pain recoil, you do feel in this 30 caliber there is a bit of an impulse comes through the rifle, but it does maintain extreme linearity and there's no flip or anything like that. Again, it's very much the small level of recoil, and of course those who see my channel will notice I've shot a lot of guns of all sorts of different calibers, so this isn't any kind of admission of any pain or anything like that. It's just a factor that the gun does have a very slight recoil pulse, and if you're used to shooting a sub 12 foot-pound 177 air rifle, it's a very different kettle of fish to what you'll be used to. FX Supply comprehensive manual. There's some also great spots in it for putting all your own settings in there when you've got it working as exactly you want it to do. I would recommend experimenting with it, and the Superior Heavy liner is of course more suited to slugs. Don't necessarily think that the heaviest ones, which although offering the highest ballistic coefficient and you've got all the power adjustability you want to drive them, you know, up until that supersonic limit really, you know, 925, 950 feet per second is usually about the best optimum spot for these. Yes, you can have those at super high BCs, but just remember those super heavy slugs are physically longer and they don't necessarily stabilise as well as some of the slightly lighter mid-weight ones, where I think the benefits you get the most from in this Leopard rifle. So, to sum up, what can I tell you? Well, the Leopard, it is quite a heavy gun, it's beautifully made, beautifully finished. I think FX have shown with this rifle they have learned lessons from previous designs like the Mavericks and the Impacts, but most importantly they've taken on the sort of DRS factors of that air tube over the barrel, and the barrel being stiffer, and then still giving you the option of going for the tube mounted lighter, shorter, you know, more handy hunting gun, or if you do want to do more longer range work, you can have the bottle version with a lot more air, and that gives you generally more power before you need to worry too much about refilling. Foster filling adapter is, as always, absolutely consistent. The magazine works very well. These Foster adapters, they just don't leak. Some of the probe adapters I'm not as happy with, but the Foster ones work perfectly. And at the end of the day, I've really enjoyed shooting this rifle. Of all the FX rifles I've had, it's come in out of the box shooting extremely well. And I am very happy with that, because it's made my life easier, it's made my life more fun, and I've really enjoyed shooting it because I can enjoy shooting it, not just tuning all the time. Well, just to put you all out of your misery, hopefully I will have a sub 12 foot-pound version soon, hopefully in 2.2, just to see what most of you UK shooters out there are going to get to play with, and I am looking forward to that, because I think it really is going to be an amazing shooting rifle. But in the meantime, thank you for watching this review of the FAC version, the sniper version, 700mm barrel. As I say, those sub 12s in the super short format are going to be some really handy hunting tools. So please like, subscribe, comment, and click that notification bell to keep track of my regular uploads, and hopefully we'll all see that rifle together in a few weeks' time. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.